Hey there, everyone. It's Christine again. Welcome to Stay in Touch's live webinar. I'm really excited to have you all here. On behalf of Stay in Touch's team, I'd just like to thank you all for taking the time to join us today. Just to get started, I'd like to introduce you all to Daryl Calloway here. He's my joint presenter today. And he has a background in hospitality operations as a general manager and director of operations. With over 20 years of experience, he's got a lot of knowledge on the industry, and I'm really excited to have him here as well. In today's webinar, as a quick overview, we will be talking about group rates. So there's a lot of questions that we get about group rates, custom rates, but essentially we want to break these down for you all so you understand when to use one over the other or when it's more beneficial for you to use one versus the other. So we'll start with a quick overview of that. We'll dive into a little bit more detail about group rates, how you set those up, as well as how you set up a custom rate, keeping in mind that both of these are applicable for your group bookings. And lastly, we will wrap up with a quick Q&A. We'll give you guys a chance to ask some questions and hopefully help give you a little insight along the way. So just real quick, I want to give you guys some insight into what we're talking about today. With your group bookings, you have two options for assigning a rate to a group. Again, that's your group rate and your custom rate. Now, your group rate is what is configured in Rover's settings. Just associate the words group rate with your Rover settings. On the other hand, we have our custom rate, and that's something that's created directly from the room block details. So essentially, where they're created can kind of help you differentiate those two group rates in your mind. The key differences between choosing to assign your standard group rate, again, that's the one that you create in Rover settings, and a custom rate, is that with the standard group rate, you have the ability to build a rate and continuously manage the rate from the Rates tab in Rover settings. You're also able to track the rate's performance in reports. The standard group rate is easy to assign to the group, better for overall tracking purposes, and allows for greater flexibility when controlling how the rate posts to the guest bill. And this is especially true if you're looking to assign a rate with a tax-exempt charge code. That's really important to note out. We get a lot of questions about the tax-exempt charge codes. That's best used with the group rate that we'll configure in Rover settings. And then on the other hand, our lovely little custom group rate, it's much faster to set up than a group rate. You'll essentially have your group set up and log in to Rover and be able to quickly assign a custom rate to your group booking. However, you can't track a custom rate's performance with the same accuracy that you have with a standard group rate. So that's kind of the one of the downsides of using a custom rate. Although it is faster, you're going to have a little less accuracy with tracking. So just to get started, I'm going to hand over the call to Daryl. Daryl, would you please talk to us a little bit about setting up a standard group rate in Rover settings?
Sure. Thanks, Christine. So the process of setting up that rate really starts, as Christine said, with the settings. When you go into the settings, you drill down to the rates option under the setup, and you'll notice that obviously when you're setting up a rate, you do first apply your rate type to that particular rate. So we'll just open up a sample rate here, and when we do that, it's going to take you to, so open up the rate, it'll take you to the details for that rate. So one thing you need to know when you set up your rates, obviously the things that are highlighted in red are things that are required in order to create that rate. In particular, though, with the group rates, in order for those rates to appear as options to select when you're setting up your group bookings, they need to be assigned a rate type of group. So any rates that you want to be selected, you just select the rate type group under that pull down, and when we go into the group settings, those will be available. But once that's set, pretty much you can set up your rates, as you would any normal rate. Another cool thing, as Christine mentioned, is that with your standard rates, your standard group rates, you have the ability to apply different charge codes to those rates. So in those scenarios where you want, which is obviously very common, if you have certain groups that are considered to be tax exempt, you potentially could set up a separate charge code for room charge that would allow or that would exclude tax from those charge codes, and then apply those charge codes to the individual rate. Once you do that, then we apply that code to the individual pickups from the group. Those rates will post without tax. So that's actually kind of a cool way to be able to manage those situations that are taxes. So once we've established the type of rate that we've done, you set that rate type as group, then we can drill back down into your group booking. So once we do that, you'll notice inside of the actual settings for the group, again, there are certain things that are required in order to establish that group booking. Those are marked with a red star. But in particular, we're focusing on rates today. If you notice now, the rate that we originally configured is now available as an option to select under the rate field on that summary tab. And then so once so you notice I selected that rate, and then basically it's saved. There's no save that you have to click or anything like that. But once we've attached the type of rate, we'll go to the room block details, and you'll notice that when I do that and then click on room and rates, those rates are set. So this really kind of illustrates the fact that the standard group rates are managed, as Christine said, either through settings or also through the rate manager under revenue management. The good thing is that it gives you flexibility in how you control those rates. You can yield them if you need to do that. If you need to change the rates or apply stay restrictions to those, you can do that using the rate manager. Now, in contrast to that, if you choose to do a custom rate, as I'll show you here. Now, once I switch it over to a custom rate, you'll notice that now the fields to adjust the rate are available. So obviously you're single and double occupancy. So you can actually update the rate as you need, and those will stay fixed regardless of whatever changes are made to stay restrictions and things like that. So there's kind of an operational decision that you have to make and how you want to manage your group rates. It is pretty common for a lot of hotels to obviously contract with their entities, for certain rates. So in those situations, you may want to use the custom rate in order to ensure that those are staying intact. But on the other hand, with the standard rates, it gives you the ability to have those rates established in advance, so your sales managers know what they should be selling, and it enables you to be able to control those as well. So there is, like I said, an operational discussion that has to happen. So once your rates are established, at that point you have the ability to be able to pick up from the group, whatever marketing codes and things like that that are attached to that group would apply to the individual pickups once they've once it's been established. So your pickups are obviously done in the rooming list. From there, you would add your pickups by clicking on add, after obviously you've selected the room type that you want to do. And then once we do that, it creates that reservation, and that can be manipulated just by going in. If you needed to make changes to the individual, you can drill all the way down into the actual reservation by clicking on stay card. But the takeaway with that is that all of those things, obviously like the rate, any marketing codes, things like that, all apply to the individual stay card, once the reservation is picked up from that. As far as with, the custom rates, like as we had said before, custom rates are kind of a double-edged sword. You have a lot of flexibility, I should say, in how those rates are applied, to the group. It's real easy to apply a custom rate. Just a matter, like I said, of selecting that under the rate selection. But when you attach custom rates to individual bookings and then pick up from those, once those rates post and once that guest checks in, that's a member of that group with custom rate, that rate will post or will show on your reports as a generic group rate, basically. So you don't have as much flexibility in how you track it and how you, monitor statistics on those rates, but it does allow you to kind of set those rates as fixed. and to control them from the group as opposed to being managed and controlled from the rate manager or the setting.
And so, Daryl, maybe something just worth pointing out here while we're on the group booking view. I think it's important for everyone to know that your from and to dates on the summary tab are really going to be key for helping you make a selection of the rate with that drop-down menu. If your dates don't match the date that you had configured for the group rate in Rover settings, you will not see it if you select the drop-down menu under the rate section. So it is important to be mindful of the dates that you had set up, just as a useful tidbit for everyone listening in right now.
Yeah, that's right. So you have the ability to, obviously when you're setting up your rates in settings, to have it available during a certain time period. So, like Christine said, you want to make sure that those seasons are set up, or that the dates for your rates coincide with the seasons that you have the rates set up with in setting. So that is another caveat.
Excellent. And maybe just worth noting here as well, the hold status can have a factor in if you can move the group dates. It's important just that it's tentative so that you can move the group dates. Daryl, can you say a little more about that?
Right. So you can move the dates of your block, using the move group, as long as there have been no pickups, there have been no reservations picked up from that block. So as long as the pickup numbers are still at 0, you can still change the from and to dates without any problem. Once you have one room picked up from that block, then it makes it a little bit harder to move those dates around. But the whole idea is that you would use that that move group functionality in scenarios when you're still establishing if that block is a tentative block, or if it's prospect, if it's just a block that's being held prior to it actually going definite. So if it has not gone definite yet, or if there have been no group blocks or reservations picked up against that block, then you can still move that date around.
And I believe that there are 2 reports that have been really helpful for tracking your group rate.
Yeah, the main report that you would use in order to track your rate is the daily production by rate report. That's obviously under reports. But the good thing about this report is that it really allows you to drill down into your bookings. And really view how your the different bookings are, or I should say the rates are performing across over your future dates. So once we drill down into it, I'll show you. You have the ability to focus the search and the date ranges around specific dates. And you can run that report on the entire room type or the room category, or you can focus it on a specific rate as well. So if we wanted to focus it on a specific group type, in this scenario we'll use group as the example. From there, once we do that, you'll have also the ability to select any of the individual rates that are associated with that rate type. Now, once we click show, you'll notice that it'll pull. It'll show you only the statistics for that particular rate type that we selected, and it will also give you a breakdown by rate. So this is really a handy way to view your pickups, to track your progress, with those groups. But have it broken down specifically by rate code. Another useful, just in general, another useful and another fairly new report that we have available in the system is the business on the books, and that gives you a breakdown of all of your production, and it breaks it down by transient as opposed to group and allotment rooms. So you can view your day-by-day production as a whole, and those numbers are broken down by individual allotment and group production. So that's a new one that you may want to check out if you haven't already. Came out in our last release.
So Daryl, regarding the market segment and origin information that we've been known to track. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and the group rate and how we can kind of watch that and see how that works in Rover?
So the good thing with Rover in general is that it enables you to be able to track statistics and things like that from a number of different places. So you can apply market codes to your groups, to your rates, to your individual reservations, to your companies, travel agents, allotments. A number of different places, can have those market segments set up, and you can apply them, based on the use of those individual components. So, for example, if you pick up a reservation from a group, and that group has market codes applied, like your source, your other market segments, then those source codes and booking codes and things like that will apply to the reservation that's picked up. Now, obviously it's not set in stone, so, if you have certain members of that group that, that have different, demographics applied to those reservations, then you can go in and apply those at the reservation level. But it's really kind of cool that, we give you a lot of flexibility in which demographics that you will apply to the individual, to the individual reservation based on their affiliation with the, whether if it's a company or travel agent or group.
And so we've hit that 20-minute mark. What I'd like to do now is remind everyone that you can start asking questions. Again, please direct those to me. That's at Christine Kiers. I'll make sure to communicate those to Daryl. But while you're asking questions or preparing to ask questions, Daryl, do you think you can talk to us a little bit about attaching a different rate to different nights in Rover for a particular reservation?
Very cool. So during the reservations process and even after the reservation is made, you have the ability to go into an individual reservation and, you can apply specific rates by day to individual reservations. So when we drill down into the actual rate, you have the ability to update the rate of room, and you can also, you have the options to either apply custom rate or update the rate in room. If we go into update rate in room, it's going to take you to a screen that looks a lot like the process of making a reservation. You'll probably recognize, the pull down, your different rates organized by rate type or room type. When we do that, if you notice the checkbox here where it says show stay dates, when we click on that, it's going to pop up a calendar on the left-hand side. And then from there, you can go through each individual day and apply a different rate type or rate code, I should say, for each one of those days. So if we wanted to say, for example, we wanted to apply the AAA rate to the Thursday for this particular guest, but then drop them down to the AARP rate on the Friday, just a matter of clicking on that date and then clicking book for that rate that we want to select. And that will apply that rate. If you notice that rate changed, that will apply that rate to that day. Same thing for, so you can apply a different rate to every one of those days. Now, you also, just in case if you don't know, if you wanted to apply, set a rate as a comp for just one day, for example, it's just a matter of, again, going into that option to select the rate from the stay card, and then we'll click on Apply Custom Rate, and that will allow you to select the, select the day that you want to change just by typing in 0. And then clicking update. Now, the adjustment reason obviously is optional. You do have the ability to, put in a comment if you choose to do that, but you don't necessarily have to do that. And we'll notice that the average of the 4 days will also change once it updates. So just a couple of little cool sort of tricks if you may not have picked up in your original trainings, but that can be very handy. Okay, so we have a question on the comp rate. in that scenario where we apply the, use the custom rate to apply a comp rate code, if you have a rate code set up as comp in your system, then you would actually select that. You would use the first scenario that I showed you where you update the room and rate and then apply the comp rate code from here. If you use set custom rate, then it's going to apply that 0 rate to the rate code that's attached for that day. Again, you can change the rate. If we had a comp rate code set up, you would just click on book and then click done to save that rate. Now, and obviously that's another operational thing that you'll have to decide what works best for you at the property. If you are tracking your rates via the your established rate codes, then the best solution would be for you to select the rate code as the comp. So we had a question on attaching the group after the guest is checked in. Great question. Just a matter of going in. If you notice at the top, so next to where the name is, you have a few different cards that you can select. So obviously the name, company, travel agent, and then the green one is for groups. So as long as the reservation falls over the dates, for that particular reservation, then it'd just be a matter of typing the name of the group, and that will actually, the group will actually pull up as an option to select. You would select that group, and that will apply the rate, apply any rates and any market codes and restrictions and things like that to that individual reservation. So it does allow you to apply it on the fly in that case. So in the question of adding room nights to a reservation after it's been checked in, if that room is a part of a group, you're correct. It will not allow you to add additional nights to that reservation. The whole point is that your group booking kind of determines how many nights are available in that group. The way to manage that would be to create an additional reservation for that guest. So you can do an additional reservation for the same guest for the additional nights that they're going to be staying.
Excellent. So we had some really great questions during this webinar. I just want to say thank you to everyone who joined and tuned in and had some great questions to bring to this discussion. What we'll be doing is sending out a recording of this webinar so you all can listen to it again or share it with anyone on property that you think needs to know about these details. In addition, you'll be receiving some links to articles in our knowledge base that should help you with managing rates moving forward. Again, just as a quick reminder, if you had checked out our release notes, you'll notice that we've been moving towards logging questions in our help desk system. So if you have any questions following this webinar, please don't hesitate to create a ticket and ask questions. We'll do our best to respond as quickly as possible. So on behalf of the Stay in Touch team, thanks to all who joined. We hope to see you at our next webinar. Enjoy the rest of your day.